Hi everyone, this is editing Anastasia. I just wanted to hop on here really quickly to give a quick trigger warning for this episode. We will be discussing kidnapping, domestic and violent abuse to a spouse. If that is triggering to you, please skip this episode. No hard feelings, take care of yourself, and hopefully we will catch you guys in the next one. So that's it, let's go ahead and get into the episode. Welcome to Crackhead Conversations. Welcome back to Crackhead Conversations. I'm your host, Anastasia.
And I'm your co-host, Hannah.
And today we are going to be diving into Fargo. So we're going to be discussing the 96 film that came out for a little bit, just for some context. And then we're going to mainly dive into season 5 of Fargo, is what we're going to be really discussing. So, yeah, without further ado, let's just get into it. I've got the notes pulled up. I'm excited to dive into this one because you and I haven't really talked too into depth about Fargo. Um, so I'm excited to hear your thoughts on it too. Because we watched the finale together, which, girl, we'll get into the finale. But yeah, so let's talk about the 1996 film. Had you watched the movie before? I know I hadn't before I started watching season 5. So, have you seen the film?
Yeah, I watched, well, because, okay, Fargo, the show, I watched, I think, maybe like season 1 and 2 before I watched the movie. But because I've been following along with Fargo, the show, so then my brain is like, when the heck did I actually watch the movie? I watched, the movie before this season, but, because this show is like one of my like favorites. It's so like, I don't know. I feel like not enough people like talk about it.
Oh yeah, I don't
Like
see as many
like
people
there's
as
a
I
few
thought.
people who do, and I think the people, yeah, if you love the movie's so great, and like just the ensemble in that movie, and also the way that they cast all the ensembles for each season, and let it in a way like anthology, like stand alone each season, but still having like that essence of the Fargo universe, what's happening and what's going on. But yeah, so I had seen the movie, yes.
Yeah, I hadn't watched it until because I had seen up until season 3 of Fargo. I had to go back and kind of skim through those because it's been so long, so I didn't remember too much of what the fuck happened in those seasons. So I was like, okay, I'm like, especially if we're gonna be diving into season 5, I was like, even though it is an anthology and you could watch the seasons as standalones, I was like, okay, if we do touch up with some of the earlier seasons, I'd like to remember what the fuck happened. So I kind of skimmed and I um kind of rewatched the first 3 seasons because I haven't seen season 4 yet of Fargo. I've only seen the first 3, and then season 5. But I hadn't watched the film until literally the other day, because I was like, you know what? I'm like, if I'm watching this show, I'm like, I want to see the movie and see like what it's based off of and kind of what it all kind of goes back to, which is the movie. And I totally forgot the cast of this movie. Like the cast of this movie is so good, and I've seen scenes and stills from this movie, and I didn't know it was Fargo, so it was interesting to kind of live through the movie and watch it and see it play out. Which then now after finishing season 5, because season 5 really dives into it pays a lot of homage to the movie, and so watching the movie after watching season 5, I was like, oh my god, I'm like, there's all these connections, all this and that. And I was like, wow. I'm like, damn. I'm like, I don't know if I should have watched the movie first and then season 5, but I don't know. It was so. I was having such a good time watching the movie after watching season 5. Probably not the right way to do it. People are probably going to come at me for not watching the movie first, but it was so fun for me. And I was like, I am thoroughly enjoying this. Although our girl Jean is not as badass as our girl Dot is, but we will we will get into that. But I enjoyed the movie a lot more than I thought I would, and I didn't know what kind of like in a sense of what I was getting into, even though I knew season 5 was heavily based on the movie. So I was like, okay, are we gonna have the same characters? Are we gonna have this? I kind of knew the plot was gonna be similar when you read the synopsis. You kind of see, but I thought it was interesting the changes they made for the show, which we'll all get into. But um, yeah, the movie was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. I gotta say, Frances McDormand as Marge, she like every time she like I know like also William H. Macy, who plays Jerry, who's kind of like our main character essentially in the movie, also does a phenomenal job. But no, Frances, I don't know. Every time she was on screen, I was just like, wow. I was like, she's so fucking good, and the whole like the Minnesota accents and everything. I was like, I literally texted you had that. I was like, I want to fucking shoot something that takes place in Minnesota. I'm like, this shit sounds like so much fun, but I enjoyed it, and that damn title sequence gets me every fucking time that it in the
Well,
show and the movie.
the whole thing is the lore because when the movie came out, nobody had the internet to look up, so everyone did
Right,
believe that like this was a true story, and it works so well where you think like, and even because when you were like, this didn't happen, right? This is why I'm like, no, yeah, that did not happen. Like because this is the first season in Fargo that's like so modern because everything's usually
right,
like 70s, like 90s. So it's like this one was finally one that was like 2019. Like, oh, like we've lived through that. Like, okay, like what are they gonna show? And even still, even though it's not a true story, it just works every single time when they're like, out of respect for the dead, we told everything, and you're like, okay,
yeah,
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 what
yeah,
is this true story that happened, in North Dakota slash Minnesota, like, yeah, let me do it. But yeah, Frances McDormand, like that movie is so great and it still holds up, and like, I mean, it's the Coen brothers, like it's so great, it's so wild. um but like when she's also playing like a pregnant cop, and I like how like in season 1 of Fargo they like throw
right,
back and where she's really the one solving the case and all that stuff. But yeah, like it was interesting, especially like with the articles that you posted, like reading, where it was like, yeah, like we already knew that story, and then especially here in season 5 where they're like, okay, how do I introduce you to a story that you know but do it in a new way? And
right,
it's the way of, oh, what about the wife, somebody that we really didn't get very much, and what if she was like the wrong person you should kidnap? What if she's a survivor and a fighter and you kidnap her, and what she's gonna do to make it back home?
right. Which I again, I will say it kind of threw me off because I had the whole story of season 5 in my head where I was so attached to that storyline, but then jumping back and watching the original movie, I was like, wait a minute. I was like, why is Jean not badass? I'm like, no. I'm like, why? I'm like, she's not fighting like Dot fought. And so it was, I had to like switch my brain and be like, okay, bitch, it's not the same thing. It's just based on. So I was like, okay, we need to kind of, rewire the brain. But yeah, no. So quick recap for those of you who don't know what um, the movie Fargo is. If you've never seen it, I'm just gonna quickly run through just a fast summary of what it is. So essentially, our main character Jerry works at his father-in-law's car dealership, and he somehow gets into a shit ton of debt. I don't know if I had missed it watching the movie, but I don't think they ever explain like how or why Jerry is in debt. And correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know if I caught that, but I don't think it's ever discussed what kind of debt he's in.
It's been too long for me to be like, no, he says, yeah,
Okay, okay.
like it might be in passing that they be like, he just like, I think you realize like he is not a well organized
He's not
man,
a
and
very smart man.
he likes things that he can't afford, like type of thing. So it's like you just assume like, oh yeah, like no wonder he doesn't
Yeah,
know how to manage his money. Like that's
yeah,
just
yeah. And so the film opens up with Jerry, our main character, meeting up with these two. In the synopsis, they call them thugs, but in my notes I just put kidnappers. It essentially probably the same thing. But so he meets up with the kidnappers, and Steve Buscemi plays one of them, which He plays Carl, and I love throughout the movie where when the police are interviewing like some of the eyewitnesses when they're like, I don't know, he's kind of just a funny looking guy. um and every single person just says, oh, funny looking, cuz Marge or Margie, whatever, is interviewing like the hookers that they sleep with or whatever, and the one hooker that was like sleeping with Carl was like, I don't know, he's just funny looking. And then they cut to like later in the movie where they're interviewing somebody else, and he also was like, I don't know, just kind of funny looking. And I was like, damn, y'all can't give Steve Buscemi a break. Come on. So Jerry meets with these two kidnappers, and essentially Jerry's plan is to get Jean, his wife, kidnapped, and then he would ask his father in law for the ransom money, and then he would use that ransom money to pay the kidnappers off, and then use the rest of it to pay off his debts. That doesn't happen because the kidnappers like kill a state trooper, and all this shit kind of hits the fan after that. So that's like just a quick little synopsis of what the movie is. So that way, once we get into season 5 of Fargo talking about it, we can kind of like you can understand where the differences are within the show and the movie, story wise, and they also kept some things similar. So I'm excited to dive into all that. But that's, yeah, quick rundown of what the movie is. Also, in our notes, what I did was because I don't know geography, so I was looking up, and I'll put a screenshot on the screen so you can see what I'm looking at too. Um, so if you're watching, you can see. I took a screenshot of kind of where, like from Fargo, North Dakota to Brainerd, Minnesota, which is kind of the trek they made in the film, to get and kidnap Jean and everything. It took 2 hours and 25 minutes. I don't know why I thought it would be so much longer. I feel like in my brain, the states in that part of America are just so big that I feel like they would take longer to go through. But it's only 2 hours and 25 minutes. I thought it'd be so much longer, but anyway, I thought it'd be interesting to know that that was like the distance they had to drive to get her. So, and I have one for the show too. We can kind of talk about that too. But yeah, so that's the movie. I enjoyed it. Definitely go watch it. It's on Max. I loved it. It was so fun. Um, and then Fargo's on Hulu. So watch that too. So yeah, let's dive into the show. I'm so fucking excited to talk about the show. You don't even understand. Okay, so the show, again, like we mentioned earlier, is loosely based off of the original movie, but set in 2019, and it's set in Minnesota. And those Minnesota accents, I will say, those actors killed it. And I was on Reddit yesterday trying to um, get some information on stuff, and some people were not very happy with the Minnesota accents. Again, I'm not from Minnesota, so I don't know, it could have been like too much for some people, but I loved the accents. It didn't like throw me off or take me out of the show in any way. I was seeing some people talking about how they were like really like caricatures and characterized accents that, accents like that don't exist in, Minneapolis and Minnesota. And I was like, oh, okay. I still enjoyed it though. Like, I still think they did a great job. But again,
I mean, it's true if you go to like not everyone's gonna like I've only spent a few days in Minnesota, and like yes, not everyone there speaks, but also some people are like implants. Especially I was hanging around like the Mayo Clinic. Like everybody there is like, they came, but I met people who spoke just like that. So it's like okay, maybe not everybody, but like that's what makes it so fun because some of the words coming out in that accent too, like
mm,
that's the whole like dark comedy, like the way that they like it's funny when it's coming out like in the sense they're playing on the whole like Minnesota nice thing, like oh don't you know, yeah, like this. But actually I was watching an interview with the it was Joe Keery, and then it was the actress who plays Indira, and actually like
oh yeah,
the
I
guy
saw.
was like applauding her because I thought her accent was very good, and like she really practiced and made sure it was like grounded, that it seemed very natural, and I think it did. It's just sometimes the words that they use, like oh the commode, like it just
It
like it,
it
yeah,
fits.
it
Like, you
seems like
can't.
a caricature because you're like oh that's hyper, but it's like, but no offense, like in a lot of places like sometimes that is like you have a specific accent, doesn't mean everybody speaks like that with that accent, but it's like, oh, okay, yeah, that's where it's from, or this accent. So, but everybody's gonna hey, but like everybody has that. Like every season, you expect, and like that would be the fun thing of being in this show is you're like, yes, okay, like I gotta practice my Minnesota accent or my North Dakota accent. Like, let's go.
I want to quickly run through just the cast real quick. Oh my god, I'm so scared I'm gonna pronounce a couple of these names wrong. So we've got Juno Temple as Dorothy. Oh my god, like she fucking phenomenal. I love her. Dorothy is like one of my fave female characters of all time. That's why when I watched the Fargo movie, I was like, I was so thrown off that Jean was not the way that Dot was because that's what I was expecting. But I do love that the Coen brothers like took that because I have a link in our notes where they do talk about like what you mentioned in the beginning of like what what's the story we can say that nobody has seen. um so why don't we like focus on the wife that like what happens if she didn't get the bag over her head, what would happen if she it's very interesting. So yeah, Juno Temple plays Dot. We've got oh god, now his last name I can't pronounce, so please don't come at me. David Rysdale.
Rise doll.
He plays
Yeah, because
Wayne.
it's like doll, like,
Yeah, I
which
don't.
I love because he's the only one who's from Minnesota. So I
Yes,
thought that was cool. Yeah.
he did such a good job. I will say, yeah, Wayne. He did a very good job. So he plays Wayne. Then we've got Jennifer Jason Leigh as Lorraine. We got our man John Hamm as Roy Tillman. I still kind of want to punch him in the throat when I see him. We've got Joe Keery as Gator Tillman. Um, then we've got oh God, see I'm so bad. Why am I the one doing this? I can't read. I'm illiterate. Lamorne Morris, who plays Wit, Deputy Wit, which R.I.P. That's so sad.
Spoiler.
Oh yeah, spoiler. Sorry, spoilers. Richa Moriani, who plays Indira, Deputy Indira. We've got Dave Foley, who plays Danish Graves, and then Sam Spurrell, who plays Old Munch, which Munch, the phantom that he is. What an iconic character. So that's the cast. There's obviously other like people in the cast, but this is our main cast that I kind of wanted to focus on. And then yeah, we've got that iconic title sequence of this is a true story. The following events took place in Minnesota in 2019. At the request of the survivors, the names have been changed. Out of respect to the dead, the rest has been told exactly as it occurred. Yeah, okay, let's dive into the show. I don't know, do you want to start that off for us? And then I'll kind of piggyback on.
Yeah, so the show is created and the showrunner is Noah Hawley, and that man, he knows how to write. The man is good. He like and the way that he plays like so much respect and homage to this world, and also just in the sense of like the Coen brothers like other movies, like their cinematic universe. Because also in this season you also got a little bit that they were discussing like No Country for Old Men with Javier Bardem, a lot of that with like
Right.
Munch's character and just like pure evil, the lurking around of like now this is like payback. Um and definitely this sees, which I will say real quick, I do like that he was saying that like they introduced like this book of like, oh, Minnesota true crime stories, and in a sense that like each of these seasons is almost kind of like a story from that like, okay, we're set in this um that involves with this state and like what happened here. But yeah, this season we I mean pretty much the opening scene is pretty much like very closely like how the movie The Kidnapping scene goes, except they don't shoot the state trooper, and Dot gets the immediate chance to just run, and it's not like I'm not waiting for no one to save me, I'm gonna defend on my own. And I think that's what makes her like, I mean, yeah, like one of my favorite female TV characters now, like adding in that list of like the women who are just like, nah, like I'm not waiting around for somebody to save me, like I will figure it out myself and make it happen and do what needs to be done. And also like playing with the whole like housewife like thing where she's using things in her house, like, and is smart enough to be like, oh, this will cause this, and like home aloneing it and setting up booby traps
Home
and like
Alone.
you know, like getting everything done in the home, and you're like, dang, okay, like let me take note, because like, okay, she knew, because they even said in that scene, like, they didn't make the house exactly, but a lot of the shots were very similar, and like, I do like that, like, we describe her as like a tiger, and I think that's such a good description of her character, where it's like you can see like, oh, she seems so pretty and nice, but like if you cross her, if you put her in a corner, like she will do anything it takes to survive. And when you find her backstory, you know, of what she's been through, um, you're like, wow, what a woman. Like, and I do like that, and I think because of like with other seasons, it kind of goes through like for instance, like season 2 and 3, we did have probably like a little bit more like female leads with like Kirsten Dunst's character, and then we also had, like, Carrie Coon in season 3. I mean, we do have a lot of like female cops, and I
Mhm.
always appreciate that, and it always goes back to, you know, like the original movie. Um, but I did like that we had like Jennifer, Jason Leigh, like we had these powerful women that you think like that all three of them, like Indira, the detective, all three of them were not very like seeing on the same page, but at the end of it that they were all supporting it, and we love seeing women support women. Like that was nice to see at the end, where they all were like, no, like I respect you, like you can talk to me like that and like stand up for what you believe in, and I respect that. So like how can we work together and like benefit, you know, ourselves or whatnot. But and Noah Hawley directed the first 2 episodes, and then they um had both like men and women direct like every like 2 episodes, it seemed. And then Noah Hawley pretty much wrote every episode, which I think, you know, like works in that sense, where you're like, oh hey, like this is my idea, and then he had like a few like co-writers for 1 or 2 episodes. But yeah, it's, and it was interesting because it's set in 2019, so like you have it leading up to 2020. You have, you know, this is like Trump's America. This is like people very much in the throne of like, you're not hearing what I'm saying, and blaming the other side. And it was interesting that the first like thing we get introduced to is like a school board meeting, which people would tune in if the school board meeting was like that, because I'm gonna tell you,
Oh,
someone
yeah.
who's attended many school board meetings, sometimes that shit is boring, or sometimes somebody comes and they're like public comments and they go off, and then you're like, oh, okay, like this is a hot topic, but I ain't never seen nobody get tased before. But I thought that was a perfect like introduction to a character, like, and I think sometimes that's hard to play, of like how do you introduce a character, but like she was the only one not being like no 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 yelling, and then the minute she gets like and her family gets threatened, she attacks, and that
Right.
completely, you were like, okay, that's who she is. Like she's not gonna come attack you or complain, but if you come and depend on like her own, you know, family or her own ground, she will defend it, and she will do what needs to be done with whatever means. But then it's interesting how that whole thing, you know, as her being like a great mom, like, oh yeah, I'm attending a school board meeting, I want to help out with the stuff, and how that all backfires, and how we then get introduced to Roy Tillman, John Hamm's character, and their connection, and how now he can find out where she is.
Right. I will say I will piggyback off of that opening. I When I was doing my rewatch, I totally forgot that the pilot opens up with the definition of Minnesota nice, and then you read the definition of Minnesota nice, and then that fades out, and you automatically get thrown into that fucking school board meeting where people are like brawling at each other and fighting each other, and then it gets to Dot, and she's just kind of sitting there with Scotty, and I don't know, it's a good juxtaposition of what that definition is that you read, and then it jumps to that violence, and you're like, what the fuck? But it was done very well. Also, I will say that in the film, they our two characters have a son named Scotty, and then that in the show they have a daughter named Scotty, which I thought it was cool because I was watching and I heard them say Scotty, and I was like, oh my god, it's almost as if it's based off the movie. Who would have thought?
I
But
real quick, the daughter is really, the daughter who, like the actress who plays the daughter, like for a young, she did a fantastic job. Like really just felt like, I mean, like she wasn't even acting, like how well she
oh
like
yeah,
was like did it in the chemistry. And I think the chemistry too between like Wayne and Dot and Scotty, like you know that through and through, like they love each other and their family, and I think you needed that because then you're kind of like, why is she so held on this ideal to have this like family? Like you really felt like Wayne respected her and that they had like, I don't know, this cute sense of like understanding, even though they she didn't really fully know who she was, but like that they like just wanted to enjoy their easy Minnesota
Right.
lifestyle. Like this is what, I want to do,
And then shit
He
hits the
sells
fan.
cars, of course, yeah. And then him selling cars, we were just like, of course, yeah, they got to
Yeah,
play it back to.
absolutely. And then also the fact that in the film the father-in-law's name is Wayne, and then they name our one of our main characters Wayne. Also, I was like, oh, interesting that the husband's name is Wayne, and the husband in the show
It
is like
is,
kind of not the oblivious one, but like you know what I mean. Like he has nothing to do with it. That it's a totally different husband from another time, which we'll get into that whole storyline too. That's very. I love the way that they took this season. It's so
but
good.
it is also interesting too that like Wayne in here in this season 5, that like he has a rich mom, he has like
Right.
this, and then you would think like juxt to the movie where it's like, how can I get money from my in-laws? Dot is like, I don't need anything from you, like I
Right.
really don't. And then it's just like, and I was Jennifer Jason Leigh, like this character was so great and such a great addition.
Her
Like
lines.
her whole attitude and all her lines where she was like, okay, I guess the cross dress were like, oh, like she loved her granddaughter and then like, could stand her son and was not a fan of the, daughter-in-law. But like she's just like, what? Like she'll just say anything on her mind, but also like that she was so powerful and that it seemed like they're gonna get her upper hand, that it never did, that
Mm-hmm.
she always landed on top just like
Just like
Snow. So it was
Snow.
like, it was, yeah, just like Snow. But like yeah, I really appreciate that where you're like, yes, okay, like
No, she did
you
a
know the right
fantastic
people.
job. I love. She did such a fantastic job, and the way she delivers like all of her lines is so fun to watch, and she just fits that character of that like rich, like midwestern lady with the fucking fur coats and the. I mean, she's just. I want to be her when I grow up. She's an icon.
And her no, like her just painted no, like on the I'm like, I
I need
want that in
that.
my office, where you're just like, no. Like,
No,
and then and every time there'd be a scene, I'd just be looking at that painting, like if you consider, and then I'm just like, that's pretty much how she's like, no,
no,
no, yeah.
yeah. But I also yeah, going back to the opening, it's a good opening because then, like you said, so Dot does get arrested for tasing an officer at that school board meeting, and she goes into the station and gets her fingerprints taken. And the way that that whole scene is shot and you can kind of tell in her demeanor that she's kind of like doesn't want to be there, doesn't want her fingerprints taken, this and that. And I don't know, as a first time viewer, you were kind of like, what the fuck is going on? Like, we'll get back to that, I guess. So it's interesting to see her demeanor in that, where she goes to the station, um, because God only knows how many times she was probably in that station before she met Wayne. But and then later on we find out like why she's so reluctant to get her fingerprints taken is because of Roy Tillman, um, who is her ex-husband. That whole oh my god. That whole fucking storyline is absolutely insane. Also the fact that ain't nobody was trying to come at him, I'm like, huh. I'm like, I get he's like the sheriff or whatever, but like really we can't like get him on anything. We can't get him on domestic violence. We can't get him in jail faster. Like we couldn't have done that.
I
But I
mean,
guess
the
he was paying people
FBI.
off. But
No, but I mean, like, but also like they pretty much were running their own like country, like their
oh
own
yeah,
state
yeah,
in that
yeah,
way
yeah.
that was. So like he pretty much was owning it, and then you hear about his family, like, so like it's been a long time, like them always running sheriff, like yeah, like in the sense, and also the way that they built that society in their little like
Right.
ranch, that like you respect the man no matter what he does, like you are
Yeah.
submissive to him, and he what he says goes, and like he's a man of God, and like all this stuff that you play on, that you're like, okay, doesn't mean like you're a shit person, like
Yeah. Like his whole ideology, bro, with like his wives and then also like the people around him on the ranch are like, damn bitch. Like, how the fuck did you get into that position of power?
I mean, the FBI is coming for him, but it just shows
Yeah.
you that like unless it's a real threat, which again, like, they're like, okay, like if he stays, you know what I mean? Like, okay,
Right,
you can
right.
do your thing if you're not interfering with our thing, and then it's like, wait, how about we actually just catch this man? Like, he's not doing anything like helpful,
Right.
really. So yeah. In
That
fact, they have all that like military like
great
weaponry
weaponry,
and all.
bitch. On a
And then you're
ranch.
like, you know what? I don't think that's probably good for them to
Anyone.
have that.
I don't think they should have that. Um, but yeah, so just a we're kind of jumping all over the place, but a quick synopsis of the whole thing is Dot. So she is married to Wayne, and they have a daughter named Scotty. Okay, um, and like we had mentioned, her mother-in-law is very rich. She owns like a debt forgiveness company thing. I don't know what the fucking shit is properly called. I don't know. What is that shit called? What the
She
fuck?
pretty much helps people pay off their debt. That's
Yeah,
pretty
yeah,
much what
yeah.
she does. Yeah.
And and then very long story short, look up a synopsis if you want like an actual good accurate representation of what the show is. So I almost said Juno, bitch. Oh my god. So Dot, before meeting Wayne, was like married to, but not even like, dude, that whole fucking story, bro, was married to Roy, but she like, bitch. You explain because bitch, my brain's all over the place. You go ahead and explain, bitch.
It's a lot because if like it's one thing for me to tell you the synopsis of episode 1. It's another thing
Right.
for me to tell you the synopsis of the whole 10 episodes because there's a lot and everybody interacts with each other, which I love in Fargo, where
Oh
all
my
of a sudden
god.
these people have a connection, and because of their miscommunication it fucks up somebody else's plan, and like that whole thing is like yeah, it's like so comradesque of like the fact that they can like think like that and show that. It's like, yeah, that's why they're very great filmmakers and will be in the books for, yeah. But anyways, so Roy Tillman definitely believes in multiple wives.
Mm.
And so yes, he has a first wife. They bring in Dot. She's just been like all over the place, doesn't really have family. Um, then the first wife brings her in, then she kind of is there. Roy Tillman is physically, emotionally, all of the above, abusing his first wife. And then all of a sudden, like, she just like leaves for
Oh,
a hot
also,
second.
before she leaves, like Roy and the first wife, what was her name? Jessica? No, what the fuck is her
I
name?
can't
It's the
remember. I
title
will
of one
think
of
of it
the.
later.
Hold on, I will find it right now because it's the title of one of the fucking.
What is? Well, tell me the first letter, Roof, when you find it, because then maybe
Okay,
I'll
I think it
guess.
literally is a J, but I don't. Okay, Fargo, there it
Not
is.
Jane.
No, not
Like,
Jane, but it starts with a J. Oh no, a bitch! No, dumb bitch. That
is
ain't
it
it.
like, is it like an L?
Yeah, bitch.
Lorraine?
No, that's the that's the
Yeah,
mother-in-law.
Lorraine is mother-in-law. I'm like, somebody's name is
No,
Lorraine.
it's
What is
L.
it?
It's Linda, bitch.
Oh,
And it
Linda.
was literally. But anyway, so Linda and Roy have a son named Gator, who's played by Joe Curie. So he's young at this point, and then Dot comes in. Yeah, just to
And Doc
clarify.
comes in at like 15. Doc
Yeah.
comes in like she's like 15 years old. Then yes, and
Also, yeah.
then
Also, sorry. Trigger warnings to domestic violence, abuse, and all that. Before we should have even gotten into that. So there is trigger warnings for that. So just be very mindful of that. Go ahead. Sorry.
so yes, then Roy starts fancying Dot and starts like getting with her. And then pretty much Linda, if I remember correctly, like Linda like leaves and then they get married.
Like I
And
don't
when I
think Lynn
say leaves, I mean is buried in the backyard.
like it in the ground. She leaves and goes on a vacation
Spoiler.
6 feet under.
Even though we all believe like Dot that like maybe she made it out, and we later find out that she did not make it out.
Mind
Which
fuck right there.
But yeah, but it's better than where she was at. But sad that she was killed by him. And then so yeah, so then Dot gets with it, and then of course,
The cycle
still
of
an abuser,
abuse just kind of keeps going.
beats
Yep.
the shit out of her, and like really bad. And then you see like photos of her, Which I think that's the turning point for the mother-in-law, Lorraine,
Oh,
when she sees that and sees what Dot has been through, and also the fact that like throughout this, Dot never talks about this, doesn't want to bring it up, and it's just like most like trauma, like how people deal with it. It's like I don't want that to define me. I don't want like right like I don't want to bring that up. Like I got out of there and I want to stay out of there and I don't want to constantly be thinking about that. And I built this new life for me. And so when she gets the chance, she runs away and escapes. And so by the time of 2019, where we pick up on the show, it's been about like 10, 11 years
it's a
since like
good
she
time jump,
ran
yeah.
away. Yeah, because then I love that scene where Lorraine and Voice sit and he's like, she's my property. Like that she made a promise, like she's mine, like we never got divorced, like she's mine. And then Lorraine is like, "Well, isn't a missing person like considered dead after like 10 or 11 years?" So like there's like that where you're like, "Yeah, so technically like it's my son's property now if that's what you're considering Dot to be like." Yeah. So Roy very much has that thing of, and this whole season does really good on this thing of power and debt, which they do in like Fargo, but like the way that they break it down in literally every character
Yeah,
has a debt that they feel is owned, and the power like balances that come from that debt, because even you know the state trooper, he feels a debt when Dot saves him at the gas station, and the pilot, like he has a debt to her, and that's why he feels very like adamant of like making sure she's okay. And then you have the poor um girl detective
oh,
who's, which I
Indira.
love that. Yeah, Indira, which Lucas Gage plays her.
Oh my god.
But plays her husband, who's so funny, but such like I really want to punch the shit out of him the whole time. Where it's like, yeah, he's making her go in debt and all this debt that she's collected, where she has probably I think the most debt of anyone.
Which whether
So,
yeah, which I also think is a really good, like I admire the way that they did it in this season, whereas like it could be like a financial debt like Indira does, like, and she has all those bills and everything she needs to pay, which is kind of I think the debt a lot of us think about when we think about the word debt is we think about money when we think about that. But then you have like you said, Wit, who is the state trooper that Dot um helps and saves at the gas station. He feels indebted to her for his life. So you've got different definitions of debt in the show, which I think is really interesting to see, and how those different definitions of debt kind of make, you know, the characters act, and what they it within the story and everything, if that makes any sense. So, but yeah, go ahead, sorry.
well, okay, so I mean we're all jumping over the place because we're crackheads, so
The title of
it's
this podcast should tell you we even have like these little breakdowns and they still don't work, yo. So somebody needs to
I
jump
don't
on.
even. I read it and then I'm like, I have it open and then I don't even open them. I don't even look
See, this
at
is
it.
why we need someone to jump on as a producer. So if you're interested in that, yeah, just let us know. Email us.
If you're interested in revamping the show and being like, listen, you guys have potential, but it's being missed.
You need to fucking rein it in and fucking get your shit together. But
um,
one day,
no, okay, so they had such a great like pilot episode 1, because I remember I'm always excited for a new season of Fargo, so I'm like, "Yes, okay, let's go." And then when I saw the cast and then I saw the trailer, I was like, "Ooh, okay, like I'm loving everybody in this, like I'm here for it. Let's go." And I'm very excited for Juno Temple and her comeback like in television, because for a while she was like, and then with Ted Lasso and then this, like we're like I really do hope like, because I believe they missed like um the Emmys cut off, so they might be for like
mm,
next year's, but like they like this was a really great season. Like for me, this is probably like
it's my
one of my
favorite.
top favorite seasons out of like the show, like, and it's just I think obviously having this female lead who is so badass, and also like the fact that like you saw her run away, you saw her do all this stuff in the gas station, like fight and defend, and then when they were like, we're gonna help you, and she's like, nah, just run home, like I'm gonna do my own thing, that you really were like dang, this was a good first like episode, and now I want to keep watching. And then you're like, fuck, I gotta watch weekly,
And
so I
then it
gotta
keeps
wait.
you yeah, it keeps you so, like, hooked and engaged on it because obviously at that point in the pilot, you don't know what her backstory so you don't know anything about Roy and her backstory and all that. So you're just like, "What the fuck? Like, how is this woman so, like, smart and how is she able to, like, defend herself so well?" So you know, they hook you with that to keep watching, so you keep, like, learning more about her because I will say, that shit hooked me so fast and like so intently that I was like, okay, bitch, like now to binge all these episodes that are out now and then have to fucking wait and watch it weekly was very painful. But we did it. We waited every week. But no, that's the beauty of how Noah writes and just watch the show. It's so good. Just watch the season. It's so good. We will not do it justice in explaining it in our crack
Oh
review,
no,
but
never. No, watch it. Also, just stop watching this and go watch it, and like,
dead
so you don't
ass.
spoil it. Because it's true. Because I do enjoy like, I mean, I'm somebody who can also watch something without spoiler, but unless it's really something and there's a lot of like twists and turns and payoffs in this that you're like, it's
Yeah.
nice to watch this with fresh eyes and not knowing exactly what you're getting into and having that tension and I have to say like overall as a season like they really built on that thinking like I really thought a lot more people obviously spoilers so if you don't want to watch it stop listening but like I really thought more people were gonna die like
Oh
so I was
yeah.
getting nervous thinking like ooh I was like, okay, okay, okay. And like even the fact that like the big showdown at the Tillman Ranch, like the fact that we didn't get that resolved to like the finale, which I thought maybe okay, like episode 9 we would get it resolved, but like they really played that like longer and like really were building up this whole stuff and I liked also seeing like yeah you like everyone's weird connections that they started getting involved in and like low key like how Lorraine also was like involved in
Oh
almost like
yeah.
everybody's like story where it's like okay well now like Roy Tillman decided to fuck with me I'm gonna fuck with him like okay and then like I have to say like that standout where like which Roy Tillman are you gonna vote for sheriff like the way that they screwed them that way which I saw coming because of my background in politics like I was like when they were doing that I was like are they gonna like get somebody with the same name? Because that's such a move. Like that is a move where they're like, oh, confuse people. Like get somebody with the same similar name, so people when they go to vote, they're like, wait, right? I'm supposed to vote for that guy with Rodriguez. What? I don't know. That sounds right. But like, but I did not expect them to have 4 Roy Tillmans and then all of them mimic him during the debate. Like the way that they
Literally.
embarrassed him, and
Ooh.
it's so great because you know he's such a shit. Like he's such a he's so
He's
horrible
also
that you're
such
like,
an
yes.
emotional man that like anything like that triggers him and his first instinct is anger and to punch that poor lady reporter and he lost the election then and there. I literally was like, no way he gonna be fucking elected sheriff again.
Even though you're like, in this
They
corrupt
probably
wherever
will,
thing
yeah.
they live in, but like also the guy who's not voting is like, yo, I'm gonna win. That's who's gonna win. Yeah, or it's like the Mean Girls, where it's like, who you voting for, Katie or Regina? I'm
Oh
gonna vote
yeah.
for Roy Tillman, who's not the real Roy Tillman, or I'm gonna vote for that one because I liked what he said. Also, okay, their music choice. I have just real quick on
Dude,
that. Their music choice. John Hamm walking to a cover of "Toxic" by
toxic.
Britney Spears. That was iconic in a lot of the music, or even like the YMCA. Like it's
Oh
true because it's a lot
yes.
more modern. So them using songs that are like, oh wait, I know that song, like a few of them. But yeah, him.
But it's also like that it's one shot and it's just tracking him and it's right when like spoiler, Dot is like if cuz correct me if I'm wrong, like she's like trying to escape out of that
Yeah, yeah,
like
he's tied up in there.
yeah,
Yeah.
and try to get get out and your fucking heart and your adrenaline is pumping, bitch, and he's just walking slowly but fiercely and angrily towards that fucking shed to toxic and you're like that is
Yeah,
so
because
cool. But also
you know he's gonna go beat her because
like
he's toxic.
dead. I uh like no, it's scary, dude. And I literally have never been scared of John Hamm in my life, but like the way he plays Roy Tillman, I'm like, no. If I no.
No, he's a great actor. The way he can
He's so
easily go from
good.
comedy to and this one wasn't he didn't play a comedic character. Like he had to play a more serious role with other people, you know, comedy happening about like around him, which I think what works in Fargo with the humor is that everyone commits to their character, and then
Right.
it's like situational humor, like, you know, it's people being like saying a line and so deadpanning that line like seriously, and then you're like,
Bitch, okay.
okay, and then obviously in their like North Dakota accent, you know, where they're like, I'm gonna come and get you, and then you're like, okay,
Like,
like.
LOL, okay, whatever. Also, yeah, Joe Curie, I love him so much. He is such a good actor, and I was telling you this when we were watching, when I was live texting you while watching the show. I'm so like, I don't know. I haven't seen a lot of people talk about this season of Fargo, which is a little upsetting because the cast is so incredible. And Joe Keery does such a good job as Gator, especially towards that. I think it's is it episode 9? I believe so, where he gets like kidnapped by Munch and gets his like spoilers, sorry, gets his like eyes gouged out or whatever, and he's talking and he's trying to like get Munch to like let him go, and he's like, what do you want, drugs, like all this kind of stuff. He's like listing all this stuff that he's trying to like get out of the situation with, and nothing is working because Munch is that character who is like, there's a debt, you gotta repay it back, you know, I don't want any of that, I want you
But
to.
also, Munch is like, you said you would give me money. I want money. Like, don't try to play it now.
Right.
Like, now you're scared. And also you gave me the money and then you took it
And you took
back.
it back and
So
you killed that one grandma that
you're
I
done.
had a like
And then you
friendship
killed the
with.
lady who was making me sandwiches and letting me
Yeah.
live at her home.
Fuck
So you
you.
really took a lot from me, bitch. So I'm gonna come for you.
But he did such a good job, and I was telling you like I've been such a big fan of his, like with his acting and everything, but also his music. I think he's fucking incredible with his music too. And I hope that people will like give him the recognition that he deserves outside of Steve Harrington, because a lot of people know him as Steve Harrington, which is totally okay. Like Stranger Things is a huge show and I love that show and I think he does a great job as Steve, but something about, obviously Gator is such a 180 from Steve and such a 180 from any character we've seen him in before. So it's very fun to see him in that type of character. But I will say, like, I do feel bad for Gator. Like, not like 100%, but you also gotta remember, like, within that character, and we talk about like the themes within the show is like power and everything. You have to remember, like, Gator grew up in this environment where like all he ever saw was Roy like beating his mom and like having all this intense power over not just his mom but also Gator. And you see it like when Gator grows up and is trying to essentially become this one, to become the son that Roy wants, and he tries really hard to do that, but obviously Gator is not that, and you see it in the show. Gator's kind of dumb sometimes, and but he tries hard to kind of fit that mold that he thinks that Roy wants him in, which is really sad because I can't even imagine the shit that Roy puts Gator through. You know what I mean? It might not be like physical abuse like he does to like his wives, because again that whole power dynamic, but it's more so like I feel like mental for Gator, because then we also see towards the end that poor boy has his eyes gouged out and he's terrified, can't see anything, and Roy fucking leaves him there. And you're like, okay, I get he's like whatever, didn't turn out the way you wanted him to, but like that's still your son. But Roy is that piece of shit who doesn't give a fuck and just wants all the power and everything he can get his hands on. So
Which I do like that in the end that it was Skater who like
turned
turns
him in.
like, yeah, who was like, okay, listen, I just got out of there. That's where he's gonna get out of that tunnel, like get him, and I'm glad he got arrested, and I'm glad that we saw him like be scared finally when we see Lorraine
Oh
and that
yeah.
whole debt and how it's like, you know how many
Again,
people have
yep.
debt in prison, and also like that whole thing that like literally that's how she's so powerful because everybody's always in debt. So it's like that controlling of it all. But real back, yeah, I'm glad we got to see like Joe Keery's range and like the boy can act, and especially the stuff that he had to do in this, like, you know, physically walking around like can't see,
Blind,
and like
yeah.
his scaredness, and also like having to play tough and literally playing very modern day like white boy, like, yeah bro, look at my fucking AK-47, like I run this shit even though you don't run nothing. That whole character. But I think in the sense that because you already know Joe Keery and you're like, oh, he's like a sweet like handsome boy, it's
Yeah.
like you weirdly feel because you kind of like he has that face. But also I think like it's interesting his character in the way that if you think about it, like Dot came into this family, realized, "No, no, 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 I'm gonna leave and escape." This is all that Gator has known, and this is pretty much, like, his life. He's never thought about life outside of here, and also, like, the person who he thought, like, "Oh, I have a friend, like, in Dot, and, like, she left, my mom left, like, all I have is my dad," and, like, yes, there is an amount where it's like, "Oh, you're my parental figure," and I could find success in this, thing of, like, building up with, like, him working his way up in the sheriff department and working for his dad and stuff. So it's like weird because it's like he, in a way, because of the world that his dad created, he had to come up and become this person in order to thrive and to succeed how his dad wanted. Um, which is like depressing and sad, and like seeing again like how people are put in that position, and what they do and how they become these people that you're like. But it was nice at the end that he still kind of had some kindness, and also the fact really that he finally at the end, because he kept denying like responsibility for fucking up on stuff, that he finally was like, I'm going to prison, like it's time for me to face, because I did have the choices and I decided to choose violence and to hurt these people, and I'm gonna own up to that and get face what needs to come.
See, but then that also like ties back to like kind of like so like I watched this analysis. I forget the creator, but I will link like his video down in the description on YouTube so you guys can check him out too. He's got a couple other episodes or videos where he breaks down all the episodes in season 5. Um but I thought it was really interesting cuz he had mentioned that the really cool thing about these characters within Dot, Gator, and oh fuck, what was his that the other wife's name? The one that was really fucking annoying. Carol? Karen? What's her name?
Probably Karen, but that's just me.
I don't know. We're gonna call her Karen. I'm sorry for the Karens out there, and if that's not really her name, but he has like a third wife essentially that he has like twins with that live on the farm because that man knows nothing else, and so he okay. So with those three characters specifically, like that third wife again, because Roy is the man that he is, also abuses her as well as he had abused Dot and also abuses Gator in a way. So we see these three characters and how they all kind of like not react. That's not the word I'm looking for, but kind of how they deal with that environment with Roy. You see Dot, who's that character that was like, no, this is not, this is the last straw. I'm getting out of here. I'm going to change my life. This is the choice that I'm making. It all comes back to choices that we make as humans. And so she made the conscious decision to be done with it and leave and change her life. Whereas Gator, like you mentioned, knows nothing else besides that. So he makes the choice to stay and try to form himself into that mold. Hi everyone, this is editing Anastasia yet again making an appearance. So I wanted to just hop on here and let you know that my cat somehow disconnected my microphone. So the last 15 minutes of this episode, my audio sucks, and I don't feel like ADRing it or voiceovering it and pretending like my audio is better than it was, because quite frankly I'm lazy and I don't want to do that and I don't have time. So just bear with the last 15 minutes. My audio is not the best, so you can either sit through it or skip it, whatever you want to do. Just wanted to let you know. Okay, bye. Sorry, what was I saying? About Gator. So where Gator, like I said, chooses to, or at that time decides to stay and try to mold himself into that perfect son that he thinks his dad wants, and then you have Karen, the third wife, who again stays in that situation and tries to raise the kids and try to, she does what she believes she needs to do because Roy, again, his morality and his whatever fucking thought process that I will never understand, um, she again tries to mold herself and be what he wants him to be. So you see all these three different characters and how they cope with those types of environments, which I think is interesting to see because it's also with it's different relationships. You've got a son and you've got, the wife and then the ex-wife. So I don't know. I find it very interesting, and the guy goes into a little bit more depth of about like that type of thing, and I thought it was really interesting to see. So I'll link that down if you want to watch more of his videos because they're very interesting. So,
But I appreciate those, and sometimes, like, part of me is like, if I'm really into it, I like diving in and finding it and doing those. But yeah, they're the real unspoken heroes on YouTube, the
a
people who really
hundred
dive in
percent.
and show and are like get into it. But like, but that shows you too the back again, like the creators, like the people running it from like production design to the actors to, cast and crew, that they're giving it like they want you to look. Because like even reading that article where Noah Hawley talks about like that first kidnapping scene where like her in her bedroom she has like wallpaper of jungle and she's hiding in the bathroom, then comes
Mm,
out like the tiger, and then all of a sudden she's in the kitchen and she's like stuck and it has like bars, so it kind of looks like jail. So it's like things subconsciously that like they thought about, but like you as a viewer may not have caught like on the first watch through, because also like sometimes you're just watching the action, so you're not like, oh, what's the wallpaper here, like, in this scene or whatnot. So yeah, they really, yeah, this is a great season. And even I liked seeing like Indira's development, and where she
oh
like
yeah.
finally like where you're like, girl, come on, leave your husband, like he's
Please
not
leave
good
him.
for
He's so
you,
fucking dumb and he's not
wasting
doing
all your
anything for you.
money, not respecting you. And then where he like cheats on her, where she's like, you know what, I'm done. And I liked also the fact that like she always was like watching out for Dot and was like, but doing what's right, and still had
Right.
that moral as a cop, like to be like, no, I'm here to like, like find the truth, but also persecute like who's like owed, or like figure out like what's going on here and get the bigger picture. But I like that Lorraine offered her a job and that she took it, and that Lorraine was like, "No, I know you're in debt, but like you have skills and like yeah, you deserve better." And I do have to say also with like Lorraine and Dot's relationship too, that like when they have that phone call
Oh
conversation where
God, yeah.
like that was so beautiful, and it's just a phone call, because sometimes but you still felt that emotion even though it was only happening through the phone. But like yeah, that it was like, hey girl, like I know what you've been through, and now having dealt with Roy Tillman myself and him coming and telling me what I need to be doing and how he's going to screw me over, like he that she like is like no. And like when they hug at the end too, and like she called like her daughter, like it's really, that was a beautiful relationship to see played out like throughout the season. And they have great, because they did like some interviews together, and they have great chemistry, and they're like, we got to do more stuff, and I'm like, I'm here for those two to do more
Oh,
stuff.
a
They're
hundred
great.
percent.
They're great.
Absolutely.
So um
I do want to
yeah, go.
touch on the end. We haven't talked about the icon that is Munch because, first of all,
He's so
that
much.
that character it's so much. Yeah, no, this whole season trying to hit every single thing is gonna be way too hard. I don't think we're gonna do it. But Munch, there's something about. Okay, first of all, he's so scary. Look, not the actor, but like the way, dude. If Munch ever came to me, bitch, I'd be like, oh yeah. If that man ever came to my house and was like, I live here now, dead ass, no questions asked, I'd be like, okay. I'd be like, I'm not. Are you kidding me? You're like 8 foot tall. You're like 3 times my size. I ain't trying to kick you out of this house. Okay, you live here now. What do you want for dinner? Like that's how it's gonna be. But no, I think the actor did such a good job with that, with that character, because that made me speaking in riddles, and sometimes I don't understand what he's saying half the time, which is why I think like multiple watch throughs of the show is important, because sometimes yeah, the shit he says you're like, wait, what? And then you watch it again and you're like, oh, it like connects to this thing and that thing. But I don't know, something about that ending. I will say I watched it again and then I watched more analysis videos. God bless to the people on YouTube who do those in-depth ones. Thank you so much for your service. Um, where at the end when Dot comes home finally, and Munch is there, with Wayne. Which, first of all, that Wayne in that scene is so funny to me because that man don't know what the fuck is going on. That man just offers this man some fucking orange soda and is like, "Hey, so what's up?" And you're like, Wayne, you don't realize how dangerous this man is. But I thought the last time we were gonna see him, which is I would have been okay with, is when he saves her and gets her out of that fucking hole
That
in the
grave pit.
ground.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I would have liked if it was just that ending, and that was like the last time we saw him. Um, but we don't, and we see him after at her house. Which I will say, like I said before, because now I'm talking in circles. I didn't like the ending the first time I saw it because we watched it together and we were both like, "What the fuck?" We're like, "What?
You were
What was
so
that ending?"
disappointed. You were like, "Bro, what? What?"
Yeah,
I
no,
don't
I was so disappointed 'cause I was like, "What the fuck was that ending?" I was literally like, so this man just fucking made biscuits, and I literally, bitch, we were watching it, and I was like, if this man takes a bite of this biscuit and it ends like that, I'm over it. And then that's exactly what happened. And I was like, are you kidding me? Like I'm like, I don't know. I don't like this ending. I thought about it for days after. I was like, I don't know. I didn't like that ending at all. And I watched again and I watched some analysis videos and I understand it a lot more now. And I do like the ending more than I did in the spur of the moment because the spur of the moment I was like, no. I'm like, I don't like this ending. But it makes a lot of sense. Again, I will insert the video that I watched because I don't remember I think his name's Peter or something. Where he breaks down the ending and he talks about like the creative choices in you know um kind of flipping that script on that pitch. You mentioned that Javier Bardem movie, the
No
ending of
Country for Old Men.
yes, No Country for Old Men. That was the fucking ending that inspired him to write this
Mhm.
ending or whatever. At least that's what I
Yeah,
read in
because
a couple interviews.
in that movie, there's like, yeah, Javier Bardem comes to this woman's house, and then she's like, "Oh, I knew it wasn't over," and then spoiler for that movie, she like he kills her off camera, so like she dies. But like I do like where they talked about like Noah Hawley's like, in that scene of like whose scene is it, right? Like
Right,
you're coming into Dot's scene, like this is a school night, we're eating
right, right.
Bisquick. I've been trying to get back home to make Bisquick for my daughter this whole time because she had breakfast for dinner. Like been trying this whole time, and now you're coming because you want to pay a debt that happened like at the beginning of the season because she does cut his ear off and kill his partner in the wake of her trying to escape from them. So it's like, but then I think it does make sense in the sense of like what was the last debt, right? Like what was the
Right.
last unpaid debt? And as a viewer, you forgot, like you were like, wait, what? I thought you all were good because you helped rescue her, and then you're like, oh shit. Yeah. And for his character, because I think also the whole thing about like how do you, when you've dealt with trauma that they both have been wrong, like that's the thing, is like they both have been put in situations where they were the less than in the power dynamic, where they were forced to do things in order to survive, and that they're both like, the heck, like we both been through shit, how about we just call it quits, like, like end it and enjoy these biscuits that were made with love. Yeah, especially his whole thing with like consuming the sin of another, that he hasn't had anything like happiness in his life, and like you could also tie it to like forgiveness, like,
Right,
until
exactly.
maybe somebody helps you forgive, you can forgive yourself, and how freeing that is, and how
But
where you're like, okay, yeah, that's what.
yeah, like instead of like living the rest of your life trying to get a debt repaid, whereas like forgiveness is like a very powerful thing, and sometimes forgiveness is all you can do. Because Dot talks about like, well, what if you can't repay that debt? What then? You know. So I do enjoy the ending a lot more than I did that first watch through because I was like, bitch, what the fuck? But
Well,
now
so much
I
happens, and
enjoy
then
it.
it's almost like a mellow ending where it's kind of more
Right.
like a slow, because we're really taking our time here, and it is good because it builds tension, because you're like, this character is crazy, so I is he gonna kill her? Is he gonna kill the
Right.
family? Like I'm scared.
Because it's either like she kills him or he kills her, and so that's really at the end of the day what all that ending could have been if they hadn't taken like that creative way of doing it of like, okay, the debt is repaid in a way because like he takes the biscuit at the end, so then it's like, okay, like yeah, we're square, everything's forgiven, let's move on. So
And also in a way you could compare it to the fact that like he made helped make the biscuits.
right.
And right, and we talk about him, we see through his flashbacks where he's consuming this nasty food, where he's consuming something that's just disgusting, and that's, that's what's filling him instead of something that's happy and joyful. And then in him making the biscuits, you could compare it to, which I think is like episode 6 or maybe later, is when Dot goes on that journey to like the camp, like utopia, like in the sense of like she has to make the puppet, you
Mm,
have to make your own puppet, that she like has to come to terms with what's happened to her, but she's the one who gets to tell it, and tell it in the way that she wants. And I thought that was smart in the way of telling it through puppets, because of all the abuse and the murder that need to be and obviously like with ratings and stuff and keeping it, but like
right.
okay, that we can also step back and just watch this happening with puppets, even though we know who's who. It's kind of not, even though it's still hurtful, but it's a little less like you can stomach it easier because it's puppets beating the shit out of puppets, instead of you're like, oh my gosh, wait, that was. But then with them like showing the pictures of her where like she literally
Oh
almost was
God.
killed by him, where you're like, oh my gosh. But yeah, in that sense of them both coming to terms of it and finding like forgiveness in themselves. And also, even though for Dot it was more like, screw you, Linda, like you left me, like I'm coming for you, like I'm gonna tell my story and show it. And I think it always comes back to like, if you only listen to one person's story, yeah, you could think a certain way, right? Like where you're like, yeah, that was rude of Linda, and then you find out what actually happened to Linda, and you realize why she didn't come
And then
back
you're
for
like,
you.
oh, that's probably why she didn't come back. Oop. We've reached an hour and 10, so do we want to? It's literally impossible. It's impossible to keep these episodes short. Do we want to add some last minute thoughts and notes on this season?
Well, you go. I think unless you have to think
Oh,
too. I don't know.
no, I literally don't have. Oh, well, I will say that Gator survived longer than I thought he would, because I genuinely thought he was gonna die in
Same.
this season. So I will say that I'm glad that he survived, but also now the poor boy is blind and in jail. But also I will say I think that like Gator within the legal system probably got like a reduced sentence. He probably will still serve, of course, for everything that happened, but it's not gonna be like super long. So I'm intrigued to get to think about what the fuck happens after that. But he survived a lot longer than I thought he would. Yeah, I don't have much to say. All only that I really enjoyed this season by far. Haven't seen season 4 yet, so but by far my favorite season of Fargo. It was so good. You've got some incredible action sequences with Dot. She is just the best character. I mean, the way Juno plays her and the way that I don't know, dude, like the way I fell in love with Dorothy so quickly, like I've never experienced that before, and to like root for her so hard and to like, want her to get back to the life that she has with Wayne and Scotty and everything. I've never rooted for a character so hard in my life than I have with Dot. I mean, I don't know. I literally can't explain how like I fell in love with her so fast that you're like, bitch, you had to beat the shit out of Roy and go back home because you need to go home and you need to survive. Because if she would have died, I think I would have been so upset. But I don't like as a character, I don't think she would have died. Like I don't think it would have made any sense. But I love this season. Go give it a watch. The writing is fantastic. The acting is phenomenal. But just know huge trigger warnings, especially towards the middle to the end of the season with domestic violence and everything. So just be very wary of that if you want to give it a watch.
Yeah, I agree. It's a really good season, and I definitely highly recommend it to anybody. Even like if you just like TV, I would recommend it, because again,
Right.
like you don't have to have watched the movie, you don't have to have watched seasons 1 through 4 to watch this. That's the nice thing about it. Like this story stands alone on its own, and the cast is incredible. Like even like Deputy Wit, like that actor is a
Oh,
comedic
I
actor, and
love.
seeing him in such a serious role too, like did so good. And like there's just something about this world that like actors can really thrive and show like their best at, and like these stories are just so like intriguing and fascinating, and I feel like are so weirdly human, because like you put like real humans in a situation and then you see how they react, to like how they're gonna do it. And um Yeah, and it feels very, in a way, though everything is heightened, it does feel realistic. There is groundness to this show that you're like, no, that, like, I could see somebody, doing that and not wanting that attention, or, like, so yeah, it's great. And if you love like an ensemble piece and like everybody's
Oh
storyline,
yeah.
because I'd have to say there was nothing in this where I was like bored. Like I was always on my phone, and either like because I would watch it on Hulu, I would always be like, oh, I stayed up till 3 a.m. You know what? I'm gonna watch that episode. Like it was like very enticing, addictive to want to keep watching it. But you don't have to watch it weekly now that all 10 episodes are out, and you can binge it on Hulu. And I feel like also just low key, real quick, it's gonna be quick. FX or FXX, even though now it's just FX, like they make some good shit, and I feel like a lot of those shows are slept on. Like I think people forget because like a lot of my shows, I'm like, damn, like you had the Americans on that. I mean, you always
Mm.
have It's Always Sunny. Like you have these shows that sometimes really like push this stuff, and sometimes yeah, like they're not. I wish, yeah, people were talking more about this show, but I always feel that with like a lot of like every season of Fargo where I'm like and I don't have enough people, and that's why I was like, you need to watch this show because yeah, I need someone to talk to it about because not enough people are watching it.
All right, we are gonna end it there. If you guys have any movies or shows you want us to talk about or react to or any of that, just let us know and we will catch you guys in the next one. Bye.
Bye. Crackheads out. Woo!